In this video, I will be going over the rent roll tab of the MSA Analyzer. When you first click into the rent roll tab, there are three main sections. The first section is made up of two tables, and these are your input tables. Within these tables, you'll be inputting the rent roll data for what I call a complex rent roll or a simple rent roll. Depending on the format of the rent roll you receive from the broker, complex or simple, if the user were to select complex, the complex table will become active and the simple rent roll area will be grayed out. When that happens, the analyzer will be analyzing the data only from this table. If the user selects the simple rent roll format, the complex rent roll table becomes grayed out and the simple rent roll table becomes active. The analyzer will then only analyze the data from the simple rent roll. In a few minutes, I will go over the differences between a complex rent roll and a simple rent roll. The second section of the rent roll tab is the lease up information. The lease up information section will provide more details about the different leases at the property. This section will show you the different unit types, the status of the current leases, so that's the lease end date, the month at unit for each of those tenants, the month into their lease based on the current lease start date, the in-place lease duration based on the lease start and end date, as well as the effective rent. The lease up information section will also tell you about the number of expired leases based on the today's date, which is specified by the user, as well as a chart which shows the number of leases that will be expiring by month. The last section of the rent roll tab is the unit mix summary. Within the unit mix summary is a table that will show you all the different unit types at the property, the sizes for each of those unit types, the total number of units, the number of vacant units, the number of occupied units, the average market rents for each of those unit types, as well as the effective rents for each of those unit types. The analyzer will also do an analysis to determine what is the minimum and maximum effective rent for each of those unit types. Lastly, the user will be able to assess the average rents for each of those unit types based on the user's specified time period. For example, if you wanted to look at the average rent for each of the unit types for the leases that were signed within the last 2 months, then you just input 2. If you wanted to look at the leases that were signed within the last 5 months, then you can change this to 5. So this will show you the average rents for each of those unit types that was signed within the last 5 months, as well as the number of leases that was signed within that time period. What's useful to note is that all the information from the rent roll tab flows into other tabs such as the unit mix tab, as well as the renovations tabs. So it makes it a very seamless process because all these tabs are connected and the data from one tab flows into the other tab, so you can seamlessly continue with your underwriting analysis. And now I'm going to walk you through the process of inputting your rent roll data into the MSA Analyzer. Before we proceed into inputting our rent roll data into the MSA Analyzer, it is important to note that in order to increase the accuracy and ensure that this model functions as designed when it comes to parsing your rent roll data, the raw data or the raw rent roll file you receive from the broker has to be clean, and the clean data pasted as values only into these tables. I have 2 videos that will walk you through the process of cleaning a complex rent roll or a simple rent roll. In this video, I will be showing you how to input a clean data into the analyzer just to show you the different functionalities of the rent roll tab. But please check out the video on cleaning a complex or simple rent roll prior to inputting data into this tab. In our first example, we will be inputting rent roll data from a complex rent roll. If I select complex rent roll, the complex rent roll section becomes active and the simple rent roll data area becomes grayed out. A rent roll that had up to 5,000 lines. So when you copy your rent roll data and you're getting ready to paste it into the analyzer, always paste as values only. Another thing to mention is that when pasting data into the rent roll table, you want to make sure that the information on the rent roll file is organized in this order. That is the unit type, the square footage, the tenant name, the market rent, the rent code, the effective rent, the move-in date, the lease start date, and the lease end date. Not every rent roll will come in this order, so you may need to rearrange some of the data on your rent roll file to fit this order, and that is part of the cleaning process I mentioned. Please check out the video on cleaning a complex rent roll or cleaning a simple rent roll to learn how to do that. This shows an example of a complex rent roll. The difference between a complex rent roll and a simple rent roll is that you have multiple line items for one single unit. This is an updated version of a rent roll file you will receive from a broker. This version has been cleaned and the data is ready to be copied and pasted into the MSA Analyzer. If you compare this to our MSA Analyzer, you can see that the order of the rent roll data has been arranged so it lines up with the information required for the rent roll table. So that's the unit type, the unit square footage, the resident or tenant name, the market rent, the rent code or the charge code, the amount, which is the effective rent, the move-in date, the lease start, and the lease expiration date. But when you first receive this file from the broker, it would look something like this. So when I talk about the cleaning process, and again, please check out the video on cleaning the complex or the simple rent roll. The cleaning process will take the raw data, which is this file that you receive from the broker, into what looks like this, where the data has been cleaned and is getting ready to be pasted into the MSA Analyzer. And just to note, the difference between a complex rent roll and a simple rent roll, and this is an example of a complex rent roll, is that you have multiple line items for each unit. In this example, unit 101, you have the first row, row 8, which has the tenant information, but in terms of like the different charge codes to that unit, they're all on different lines. So it makes it quite challenging and complex if you were to analyze a rent roll file as this. With a simple rent roll, you have one row for all the tenant information. So this is more simple because it's easy to filter the information and sort through the rent roll in case you wanted to find a specific information. Going back to our complex rent roll, with our data clean and ready to be copied over, we can copy our entire rent roll data, not including the titles. So I select the first cell in the rent roll, press Shift, and select the last cell of the last column. Copy that over. Come back into my MSA Analyzer. I have to make sure I paste as values only. So I'll right click, go to Paste Special, and click Paste. Once that data is pasted, there's a couple of things that I need to update. The first is today's date. So whenever you're doing your analysis, you want to enter date. So let's look at the rent roll and see when we received this rent roll. This rent roll was as of 5/5/2023. Let's assume we received that rent roll on 5/6/2023. So today's date will be 5/6/2023. And the last thing to update is the rent code. The rent code is the charge code that's designated to the effective rent. In this case, that rent code is rent. If we were looking at trash, the charge code for trash is trash. In this case, we want the effective rent code, and that's rent. So change this to rent. With the rent roll data inputted into your complex rent roll data section, you can scroll over to the lease up information section. At this time, the analyzer has done a comprehensive analysis of the rent roll to pull out all the different unit types, the lease end date for each of those units except the vacant unit, the month at unit, so that is how long that tenant has been at that unit based on the move-in date, the month into lease, that's based on the lease start date and today's date, how long since that tenant signed their new lease, and the in-place lease duration, how long is their current lease for, as well as the effective rent. The lease up section will also show you the number of expired leases, and that's based on today's date, the date entered by the user, as well as the number of leases that will be expiring in subsequent months based on today's date entered by a user. If you look at this chart, you can see by June 1st, there will be 32 tenants that will need their leases renewed. This chart is very important because you can work with your property manager to come up with mitigation turnover strategies, especially in those months where you have a lot of tenants with leases expiring, so you can better allocate marketing budget to either retain the tenants or recruit new tenants into your property. The last section is the unit mix breakdown. Within the unit mix breakdown, you can see the total number of units at that property. In this case is 300. You can see there are 15 units as vacant and there are 285 occupied units. You can also see the breakdown based on the different unit types, the market rents for each of those unit types, as well as the effective rent. For each of the unit types, you can see the minimum effective rent as well as the maximum effective rent. This column, the effective rent delta, looks at units of similar size. For example, if you had a unit that one was in classic condition, one was recently renovated, and one was partial, it would look at the recently renovated unit, compare the rent of that renovated unit to the rent of the partial or the classic unit to see what the delta in effective rent. This gives you an insight into the renovation plan, and you can use this information to compare it to what the broker is telling you. Sometimes a broker might tell you there's an ongoing renovation in which they're getting about 300 plus per unit, but when you compare the renovation premium between a renovated unit and a classic unit, you can see that premium is only $168. Lastly, you can specify a time period in which to look at the average rent for each of those unit types. If I wanted to look at the leases that were signed in the last 1 month, I will put 1 in there. And the analyzer will show me the average rent for all of the leases that was signed in the past 1 month. I can look at the past 3 months, and it's going to show me the average rents for all the leases that was signed in the past 3 months, and so on. And like I mentioned before, all the information from this rent roll tab will then flow into your unit mix tab, where you can continue with your underwriting analysis, as well as your renovation tab in case you were to upgrade some of the units as part of your business plan. Another thing to mention about this rent roll tab is that the analyzer only performs analysis based on the selection from this dropdown. If I were to change this from complex to simple, the analyzer now reads the information from this table, and because there's no rent roll data input, the output is just 0. And if we change this back to complex, you can see the analyzer performing the analysis and returning more data that you can use for your underwriting insights. In the last step of this video, I will go over inputting the data for a simple rent roll. We can just change this to simple. Even with the data here, the analyzer is not using any of this data. And now I want to paste my rent roll data from my rent roll that I received from the broker. And in this case, it's a simple rent roll. And like I mentioned before, I call this a simple rent roll because you have all the unit information on a single row. With rent roll data such as this, it's easier to filter and sort through. This is a clean version of the simple rent roll. Again, please watch the video on cleaning your simple rent roll. The original file received from the broker would look something like this. It's a little messy with a lot of columns that are not needed for your analysis. So once that's clean and ready to be input into the MSA Analyzer, the data looks like this. And as always, it follows the order in terms of the data that we need to input into the MSA Analyzer. So that's your unit type, your square footage, the tenant name, market rent, effective rent, move-in date, lease start, and lease end date. With our rent roll data clean, we're now ready to copy without the titles the rent roll data into our MSA Analyzer. Select Ctrl C, or you can right click and do copy. Go back into our MSA Analyzer. We want to paste special, paste as values only. And as soon as you paste the rent roll data, the analyzer automatically begins the analysis. The one thing we need to update is the date, because this rent roll is different from the complex rent roll file we previously did. We have to check the date to see when we received this rent roll. In this case, the rent roll was pulled on 10/16. So let's assume that we received this file from the broker on 10/17. So today's date, we will assume is 10/17. And the reason we update this today's date is because when you look at the lease information section, all this information, the expired leases, the subsequent expiration of the different leases by month, that data is based on that date specified by the user. And similar with the complex rent roll, you can see the lease status of the different units, the number of leases that will be expiring by month, as well as a breakdown of the unit mix, which shows the different unit types, the vacant units, the occupied units, market rent, and effective rent. In this rent roll, there are 318 units. 24 of those units are vacant, 295 are occupied. This is your gross potential income, which is the market rent. So this is the maximum rent that you can potentially rent each of those units. And this is the effective rent. It shows you the minimum and effective rents for each of those unit types and the average rent based on the user specified time period. Another thing I wanted to mention is that when it comes to the unit types, for a majority of the rent rolls, the unit types will be designated by a certain code. But if you know the different unit labels for each of these unit codes, you can easily change it here. As you can see, this is in blue or light blue, so the user can make edits to that cell. If I knew this was a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, then I can change this to 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And as that data is updated, if I go into my unit mix tab, I can see that unit type has been updated. If we go into the renovations tab, that has been updated as well. In subsequent videos, we'll go into more details about the unit mix tab as well as the renovations tabs. Going back into our rent roll tab, we can see how this analyzer can save you a significant amount of time when it comes to rent roll analysis. The main thing to become familiar with is just cleaning up the pre-clean stage, which again, please watch the videos on cleaning the complex rent roll and the simple rent roll, because that will save you so much time when it comes to your underwriting analysis. When I receive a rent roll from a broker, I'm able to input that data into this rent roll in less than 5 minutes. So the cleaning process takes me about 2 to 3 minutes for most rent rolls. And I'm able to copy that data into my MSA Analyzer rent roll tab and have a complete breakdown of the unit mix of that rent roll file in less than 5 minutes. If you have any questions on how to clean the rent roll or parse your rent roll data, please reach out to us by visiting our website at msanalytica.com.